Okay, if you look on page 28, I'm going to go do the word problems 11 through 19. Okay, so number 1 says Joan's income is $190 per week. She saves 20% of her weekly salary. How much does she save each week? So you have to reword this question. And if Joan makes $190 and she saves 20%, the question you really want to know is, what is 20% of 190? So you can either set it up as a proportion, fraction bar equals fraction bar over 100. We want to know 20% of 190. So 190 is the whole. We want to know the part. The other way you could say, what is, x is 20%, change it to a decimal, of 190. Okay? Either way, you get x equals 38. Make sure you do the work yourself, and make sure you agree. Number 12 says, 90% of the seats of a flight are filled. There are 240 seats. How many seats are filled? Well, again, we'll do part to whole ratio, with 100% being the whole, 90% being the part. Now, it says there are 240 seats, so that represents the whole. And we want to know the part that is 90%. So that would be our percent proportion. Or we could say, what is 90% of 240, because that is the whole. And again, that would be 216 seats. And number 13 says, of the 800 tomatoes in a crop. Okay, so we do part to whole equals part to whole. If 800 is in the crop, 800 is the total next to the 100. Of the 800 tomatoes in a crop, 60% will be used to make ketchup. So of the 800, 60%, so part to whole equals part to whole. Or you could say, what is 60% of 800? And the answer is 480 tomatoes. Okay? Now, let's turn the page and look at number 14. Okay, number 14 says 80% of dentists recommend Trident. So fraction bar equals fraction bar over 100. 80% is the part. Then it says there are 200,000 dentists. Well, that's the whole number of dentists. We want to know what part is 80%. So that would be the proportion, or we could say x is, what is 80% of 200,000? And the answer is 160,000 dentists. Okay? Now, number 15. If 28 Montgomery dentists recommend Trident, and this represents 80% of the Montgomery dentists, how many dentists are there in Montgomery? Okay, well, fraction bar equals fraction bar over 100, and the 80% definitely goes on top. But it says the 28 Montgomery dentists, they represent 80%. They don't represent all of the dentists, and they want to know what all of the dentists would be. So in this case, our whole is unknown, and our part is known. So we would do 80x equals 2800, and our answer would be 35. And number 16 says, the sticker price on my car was $18,500, but I had to pay New Jersey sales tax of 7%. What was my total cost? Now, there's many different ways to do this. The two most popular ways would be you would say, okay, well, what is 7% of 18,500? As soon as I find out what that is, I have to add it to 18,500, and my total cost would be 19,795. So that's one way to do it. Find out what is 7% of 18,500. But now another way of doing it is saying to yourself, well, if I have to pay sales tax on top of the 18,500, I'm not really paying 100% of the 18,500. I'm paying 107%. So you could say, what is 107% of 18,500? And that would be 19,795. And I think that's the easier way, but whichever way works for you is fine. Now, number 17. I had a coupon for 20% off any Coach handbag. I found a bag that I liked and it was marked $195. With the discount, how much did I pay? So again, fraction bar equals fraction bar over 100. I had a 20% discount. Now, you could find out what is 20% of 195 and then take that amount, which is $39, and subtract that from 195, and you get 156. That's a totally acceptable way of doing it. But I prefer to say, I don't want to have to do it in two steps. I don't want to have to figure out 20% and then subtract it. If I get 20% off, what am I really paying? I'm really paying 100 minus 20%, or 80%. So why can't I just figure out what 80% of 195 is? Because that's how much I would pay. If you do it that way, you get 156 in one step. Or we could say, what is 80% of 195? And either way, we get 156. Okay, you have to choose whichever method works for you the best. Okay, then we have two more. Number 18 says, if I had to pay 7% sales tax on my discounted Coach bag in number 17, what would my total cost be? Okay, so if we know you paid 156 and you have to pay sales tax, you would be paying 107% of 156, which would be 166.92. Or you could say, what is 7% of 156? Find out that it's 1092. Add it to 156 to get 166.92. But also, suppose this problem was given to you all at once. That it was marked 195. You had a 20% discount, but you had to pay sales tax of 7%. Okay, so when you have problems like this, the quickest way to do it is to say, you take 195. If you get a 20% discount, you're really paying 80%. So what is 80% of 195? Then, if you have to pay 7% sales tax, you multiply that by 1.07. If we do that all together in one step, we get 166.92 in one step. Okay? Now, the last one, number 19, says an iPhone was advertised as $200, but if I bought it on President's Day, I could get 15% off, but I still had to pay 7% sales tax. What would my total cost be? So, you take the original price, and if you get 15% off, you're not paying 100%, you're paying 85%. But then if you have to pay 7% sales tax, you have to pay 107% of your discounted amount. and that would end up being $181.90. Now, I think that's the quickest and easiest way to do it, but some of you may not like it that way. Some of you may prefer to do step by step. So, if you like it this way, you can stop the video. If you'd rather do it step by step, continue to watch. So, the first thing I need to do is figure out what is 15% of 200. Okay? So, I set up my proportion like that. Now, if I calculate this, I get that X equals 30. So my discount is $30. I take 200 minus 30. My discounted price is $170. But now I have to figure out what is 7% of $170. So to do that, I find out that it is $11.90. So I have to add $11.90 to my 170, and I get 181.90. So you can do it in multiple steps, or you can do it all in one step. It's personal preference. And that's the end of the video.